The kinky, intimate life of Roman gladiators was wild. Many women wanted to have to get close with them or feel their sweat as a kind of aphrodisiac. Gladiators were the rock stars of their day, but there was also a social stigma attached to their existence. They were slaves who embodied some of the greatest virtues held by Roman society. But their status didn't stop women in Rome from desiring gladiator sex or from gladiator sweat as an aphrodisiac, as they tried to satisfy their lust for the fierce, manly fighters. Obviously, gladiators were in an odd position, both physically and symbolically, when it came to sex in ancient Rome. The writings of modern writers and archaeological evidence, such as sexual graffiti, provide the basis of our understanding of sexuality throughout history. Fortunately, there is a wealth of material that describes the experiences of both gladiators and those attempting to enter their tunics. We present to you an unbelievable tale about the intimate lives of gladiators. We all know that gladiators were particular fighters of ancient Rome, but we do not know a whole series of curious aspects about these people, who are so famous even in modern times, despite the fact that many centuries have passed. The name derives from gladius, the sword of the ancient Roman legionary that was also used by wrestlers. The practice of duels between gladiators comes from the Etruscans and, like many other aspects of Etruscan culture, this too was adopted by the Romans. The gladiators were on average between 20 and 35 years old, in the majority, however, 30, in line with the life expectancy of the time. And the height was also in line with the time, 168 cm. The first gladiator show probably took place in 264 BC. In 105 BC, the games became public. The number of gladiatorial shows increased enormously during the empire. As earlier said, in Roman society, gladiators had very little standing. Not all gladiators were slaves or prisoners, just most of them, especially when the gladiatorial tradition began. But the freemen who sold themselves into gladiatorial combat were also in the lower social strata. Gladiators were on the same level as other men and women who sold their services, namely actors and those in the sex industry, putting them in a unique position. Gladiators were considered brave, achieved fame for their victories, and were lusted after by women, while simultaneously shunted off to the outskirts of propriety. Crowds admired gladiators for facing their mortality, but, at the most basic level, gladiators were regarded by polite Roman society as little more than laborers, paid and revered for their willingness to risk their lives. Because of their victories in the arena, they were loved by members of the fairest sex, and they attracted the attention of distinguished women who were married to numerous Roman rulers. The wives of Roman emperors were not immune to intimacy with gladiators. They enjoyed satisfying their desires with such strong, reliable, and brave guys who were in a bare fight for their lives. The wife of Marcus Aurelius fell in love with a gladiator. It was rumored that the gladiator was the father of Aurelius's son. According to two famous Roman historians, Herodian and Cassius, the wife of Marcus Aurelius, was madly in love with one of the gladiators and told her husband about it. The Roman emperor consulted the prophets to indicate what he should do to alleviate his wife's passion for the gladiator. They told him that the gladiator must be executed at the moment when he would be in a position as if he wanted to have intercourse with Faustino. The sweat and blood of gladiators was sold as an aphrodisiac. The fluids that came from gladiators were hot commodities in Rome. Ancient Romans had a strong belief that gladiator sweat was an effective aphrodisiac. Before the gladiators cleaned themselves after a fight, a tool called a strigil was used to scrape off sweat from their bodies. Their belief was that the more successful a gladiator was in the arena, the more potent their fluids were to use as an aphrodisiac per history collection. Gladiator sweat was also used as perfume and as a beauty treatment. The grime and sweat was mixed with olive oil to achieve a better consistency and mixed into cosmetics. It was even collected into pots and sold as souvenirs. The blood of gladiators was also used as an aphrodisiac. On her wedding night, a young woman might have her hair parted using a sword dipped in the blood of a deceased gladiator to make sure that her married life was long and fruitful. In some instances, the blood was directly ingested or mixed with wine before drinking. Emperor Commodus was rumored to have been fathered by a gladiator. According to two Roman historians, Herodian and Dio Cassius, the wife of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, 161-180, was so attracted to a gladiator she saw during a parade of combatants that she actually fell ill. She told her husband about the man, and Aurelius consulted soothsayers to see what he should do to ease his wife's passion. They told him that the gladiator should be executed while Faustina was underneath him, covering her with his blood. It seems as though the gladiator was supposed to be engaging in intercourse with Faustina at the time. After he perished, she was then to immediately have relations with her husband. Whether or not the story is true, it highlights the almost magical powers attributed to gladiator blood as well as the intense sexuality they embodied. Their son Commodus, who went on to become emperor, may have in fact had gladiator blood in his veins. He preferred participating in gladiatorial combat to being emperor, often fighting physically disabled people or animals while on a raised platform. Female gladiators were given less armor to show off their bodies. Female gladiators, or gladiatrix, weren't as common as their male counterparts. They were actually banned in 200 BCE, but when they did make their way to the ring, they were highly sexualized. Female gladiators wore loincloths as opposed to the tunics men wore, and were not given helmets, presumably to show off their faces and hairstyles. Fights featuring female gladiators represented the pinnacle of luxury and indulgence, often presented at private parties held by the Roman elite. Archaeological evidence indicates that women used the same weapons as men, however. One statue believed to depict a female gladiator features a bare-chested woman holding a sika, a short, curved sword associated with a type of gladiator known as a Thraex, or Thracian. Gladiator combat was based in erotic beauty. There were several types of gladiators, the distinctions based in their chosen types of weaponry and tactics, but the most beautiful gladiators were held in high esteem. When the opponents for a gladiator were chosen, their beauty was also taken into account. Ugliness ruined the erotic fascination with viciousness, while beauty simultaneously emphasized the pain of mortality. Roman graffiti tells the story of gladiator fangirling. At Pompeii, archaeologists discovered graffiti that offers insight into how Romans felt about their favorite gladiators. In the gladiator barracks, one inscription reads, "Floronius, privileged soldier of the 7th Legion, was here." The women did not know of his presence. Only 6 women came to know, too few for such a stallion. Another says, Antiochus hung out here with his girlfriend Cythera, indicating that gladiators, in fact, had girlfriends. 2 inscriptions, Celadus the Thracian gladiator is the delight of all the girls, and Celadus the Thracier makes the girls moan, also seem to make it very clear that Celadus was quite the fighter and the lady pleaser. It's unclear who wrote these lines, though. Perhaps Celadus just wanted to leave a good reputation behind. Roman women used gladiators as bodyguards. Hiring a gladiator as a bodyguard wasn't a bad idea. Having a retired or off-duty trained warrior to protect you makes sense. This would have been a lucrative endeavor for the gladiator, too. Gladiators protected elite Romans when they traveled or were employed to keep military troops in line. Women seized on the phenomenon of hiring gladiators for other reasons, however. According to Philip Matisak, author of the Gladiator's Manual, many a wealthy lady who hires gladiator bodyguards for the night does so in expectation of her body being guarded very closely indeed. Homosexuality among Roman gladiators. One of the most famous examples of homosexuality among Roman gladiators is the story of Priscus and Verus. Priscus and Verus were two gladiators who fell in love with each other while training at a school in Rome. Their love story was so famous that it was adapted into a play performed before the Roman Emperor Nero. There are also many examples of homoerotic art featuring Roman gladiators, which suggests that homosexuality among these fighters was not seen as taboo or deviant. It was so common that it was even depicted in art meant to be displayed in public places. It is worth noting that homosexuality among Roman gladiators was not just about sex, but also about love and companionship. Many of these relationships were as long-term, profound, and valued among society as any other heterosexual relationship. Some historians believe that homosexuality among gladiators was seen as a way to create strong bonds and increase the chances of survival in the arena. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.